There are moments in history that don't just make headlines, they fracture timelines. Moments when television screens flicker with breaking news banners, when phones buzz endlessly, when the world seems to lean forward, holding its breath. You remember where you were. The shock, the confusion, the arguments that followed. Some presidencies move steadily, predictably. Others unfold like a storm, sudden, loud, impossible to ignore. Love him or oppose him, one thing is undeniable. Donald Trump's political career produced some of the most controversial, debated, and polarizing moments in modern American history. But controversy isn't just about outrage. It's about impact. It's about the ripple effects that continue long after the cameras shut off. Tonight, we're stepping back into 5 moments that didn't just dominate headlines. They altered conversations, shifted political alliances, and left permanent marks on American history. These are not rumors, not conspiracy theories, not exaggerations. These are real events, layered, complex, and still debated today. Let's begin. Number 5. The travel ban shockwave, January 2017. Just 1 week into his presidency, Donald Trump signed Executive Order 13769. The order restricted entry into the United States from several predominantly Muslim-majority countries. The administration framed it as a necessary national security measure. Critics immediately labeled it the Muslim ban. Airports across the country turned chaotic overnight. Travelers with valid visas were detained. Families were separated mid-journey. Protesters flooded terminals from New York to Los Angeles. Handwritten signs rose above crowds chanting for due process. Federal courts intervened within days. The legal battle stretched for months through multiple revisions, eventually reaching the Supreme Court, which upheld a revised version of the policy in 2018. Supporters saw decisive action. Opponents saw discrimination. But what made this moment historic wasn't just the policy. It was the immediate collision between executive power, public protest, and the judiciary, all within the first days of a presidency. The tone had been set. Number 4. The tape that rocked a campaign, October 2016. Weeks before Election Day. A 2005 recording surfaced from an Access Hollywood segment in which Trump made explicit remarks about women. The fallout was immediate. News networks ran the clip non-stop. Prominent Republicans withdrew endorsements. Some publicly called for him to step aside. Trump issued an apology, calling the comments locker room talk. For a moment, it appeared the campaign might collapse under the weight of the controversy. But it didn't. The political base held. And just weeks later, Donald Trump won the election. The incident became one of the defining flashpoints of modern campaign politics, raising questions about character, accountability, and how much controversy voters are willing to overlook. It also revealed something deeper. The rules of political survival were changing. Number 3, Charlottesville and a phrase that wouldn't fade. August 2017. Charlottesville, Virginia. White nationalist groups gathered under the banner, "Unite the Right." Counter-protesters arrived. Violence erupted. A car drove into a crowd, killing one woman and injuring dozens. The nation waited for the president's response. When Trump addressed the incident, he stated there were very fine people on both sides. Critics argued the wording failed to clearly condemn extremist groups. Supporters pointed to later remarks where he explicitly denounced white supremacists and neo-Nazis. But the phrase stuck. It echoed through campaign ads, debates, and speeches for years. Charlottesville became more than a single event. It became symbolic, tied to national conversations about race, rhetoric, and presidential responsibility. It marked a turning point in how many Americans perceived the tone of the administration. Number 2, the phone call that led to impeachment. A whistleblower complaint surfaced involving a phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During the call, Trump asked about investigations connected to political rival Joe Biden and his son. At the same time, military aid to Ukraine had been temporarily withheld. House Democrats argued this was an abuse of power, pressuring a foreign government for political gain. The White House insisted the call was appropriate and denied any quid pro quo. The House of Representatives voted to impeach Trump on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The Senate later acquitted him. It was only the third presidential impeachment in American history, and it intensified partisan divisions to historic levels. But the biggest shock was still ahead. Number 1, January 6, 2021. Congress gathered to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election. Earlier that day, Trump addressed supporters near the White House, repeating claims that the election had been flawed and urging them to march to the Capitol. What happened next stunned the world. Security barriers were breached. Lawmakers were evacuated. The certification process halted. For the first time in modern American history, the Capitol building had been overtaken during a constitutional proceeding. In the aftermath, arrests were made nationwide. Investigations launched. Political leaders across parties condemned the violence. The House impeached Trump for a second time, charging incitement of insurrection. The Senate later acquitted him. But January 6th became something larger than a single event. It became a defining symbol of political division, institutional stress, and the fragility of democratic norms. It also marked the first time in history that a U.S. president had been impeached twice. Closing reflection. These 5 moments were not isolated incidents. They were pressure points, moments where political tension reached the surface. For some, they represented bold leadership and disruption of the status quo. For others, they represented instability and division. But no one can deny their impact. Years from now, historians will still debate these events, not just for what happened, but for what they revealed about power, institutions, and the American electorate. Because controversy isn't just about outrage, it's about consequence. And in that sense, these moments didn't just shape a presidency, they reshaped an era.